Got that going. That's recording. All right, Brad, thanks for being here. I think we got a lot of common interests here, and I think we're going to have a good conversation on this episode. And, I guess to start off with everybody, so everyone gets a little bit of a background on you, you help people become better versions of themselves. Is that kind of the gist of it all? Happy fit?
Yeah, that's first, yeah, thanks for having me, Chris, on your show. Certainly, definitely appreciate that. Yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. I like to say, I'm your classic couch potato that, was lethargic, overweight, had no direction in life, and through a long journey, 13 years, have been able to turn that around and switch that around. And now my focus going forward is helping others to do the same. Yeah, kind of help others that are where I was 13 years ago.
So 13 years ago, you were in a bad spot, you were saying?
I don't know if I'd use the word bad, maybe lost, disappointed with myself. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was like anybody, you're married and have a child, you're raising a kid and you're working full time. Life just catches up with you, and found myself, 50 pounds overweight and out of shape and no direction and just, all of that. And it just started like, hey, this isn't working for me. And that desire to finally change, the old me, I realized was just not working anymore. So just, that desire to change. And it's been life's a journey, man. It's been crazy. And, once you set your mind to who you want to be, so to speak, just all kinds of opportunities open up and all kinds of great things start happening. Just like, this being on this podcast. And, I'm not sure how you learned about Podmatch, but I just woke up one morning and there was an email from Alex in my inbox, and I went, whoa. And so that's kind of how I spend the last 13 years. I just wake up and there's all of a sudden this opportunity there for me. So I just keep following the doors that are opening. And here we are.
Yeah, man. I can relate to you a lot, dude, just because, 13, not even 13 years ago. I don't know why I said that, because I guess you just said it. But like this, I hit 36 this year, right? As far as,
oh, nice.
And it kind of just was like, whoa, I'm on the wrong end of 30, like when I was younger, I used to think people in the 30s and 40s were already old and stuff. Right. And so,
oh yeah. Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Well, that's what I keep hearing, man. And then I was like, oh man, I'm 36 now. And then, when I started this, I was 35 or 34. And so then it was kind of like, man, I gotta start doing some stuff in my life, and if statistics are correct and everything's right, I'm roughly middle age. I mean, depending on what's the stats you're looking at, right? But I mean, that's
if you're middle age, Chris, I don't know what I am. I'm about to turn 50 here in another month. So
well, my goal has always been to become a centurion and live to 100. So I never really looked at it like that. But if I don't know what kind of stats are out there right now, and I probably shouldn't even be talking about stats or anything like that. But usually, I guess my point is, when I was little, I was like, 35 that's old, bro. But it's really not. It's really not now. I mean, it's all about how you're living.
Yeah, it's crazy how time flies. But I'll tell you what, as a man, especially you're into health and fitness, I know that. Wait till you hit 40, 41, 42, man, that testosterone goes, woof. Yeah. And you think you feel it now. You start to feel a little more at 38, 40, 41. But 42 is when I had my big drop off. I started my intense training about 40, 41, becoming a triathlete and a runner. And 42 to 45, you could tell you're like, I was working harder, but going slower. And that's just that natural decline that, everybody goes through as our biological, or I guess our chronological age increases. So, but as our chronological age increases, but our biological age doesn't have to.
Sure. Well, let's take a look back real quick so the listeners kind of got more of a just what's going on. So 13 years ago, you decided, hey, I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to make a change in a positive role, and just move forward with it and change your mindset, change the way you're living. Yeah. And what was it? I mean, was it just, you were like, I know you said you were kind of, life came at you pretty fast and you were 50 pounds overweight and just kind of going through a divorce, but was it just like, did you just were walking up a hill and got out of breath and just all of a sudden like, I can't keep living this way. I got to change. Or it was just.
No, I was sitting on, it was November 2012. I was still married at the time, sitting on the bed in our master bedroom there, and my belly was hanging out over my belt. And guys, we get that Santa I don't know what they call it, Santa Claus belly or pot belly, deer belly.
Dad bod.
Yeah. Dad bod. Like I had an 18 pack, and my belt, barely fit around. I think I had a 42-inch waist at one point. I have a 34-inch waist now. So, but it was that feeling of just pure disgust and disappointment with myself. But here's the crazy part. So I don't know how, I always tell this part of the story. So that was November 2012. I looked at myself and I said, I got to do something about this. But there's a but to this part. I didn't do anything at all for an entire year. So an entire year went by, November 2012 to November 2013. Exactly 1 year later, I was back on the bed. I'm in the thick of the divorce. And I looked at myself again and I'm just like, this is just not happening. So then I, I like a lot of people, like, how do you start? What do you do? Like I had no knowledge, no training. I didn't know anything about nutrition, healthy eating, exercise, any of that. I had an exercise bike in my room. So the only thing I knew how to do was to ride that. And I didn't know anything about pacing or cadence then, or interval training or sprint training or any of that stuff. So I just got on it and I rode. And like most people, you have a New Year's resolution. They last 1 or 2 weeks. Mine lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks was like, and I don't even know if I lost anyway, but the part of the story is, and so I had a friend at work, and you've probably heard of this, introduced me to P90X.
Yep.
And this looking back at it now, I realize one important point that I want to emphasize for people. So when I got P90X, my goal was never to lose weight with P90X, even though that did happen. That became the byproduct. My goal was to finish that program. At this phase in the journey, I was like so down. I was like, I got to do something to just stimulate my life. So I'm going to finish this no matter what. I had that, I call it your determination muscle. And that's what everybody needs. I don't care where you are in life, if you want to get from point A to point B, that is your finish line, you've got to have that determination. So I was just determined to finish P90X no matter what. And, I was brand new to it, and that thing was hard, I remember. But I did it. But this is, if we're just talking purely about weight loss, this is what everybody does. You have an external goal, and then you achieve it. And then what? Then what happens? Like you have to have another external goal. I didn't know that at the time. And so I gained 12 pounds back within, I think, the first week or 2 weeks. And that's where the up down yo-yo cycle started. And that went on for about 2 years until I figured, I don't know if I should say figured out, or until I had some other awakenings or aha moments and enlightened moments and whatnot. And it's just kind of one step at a time. And here I am 13 years later, and now want to teach people all this. So I always tell people, I'm sorry, Chris, I hope I'm not talking too much.
Oh man, you're fine. I'm enjoying it. Go keep doing it, man. No,
I always tell people the very first thing in your journey now is figure out who you want to be. That is point B. So look at your life and, I'm a couch potato. Is that who I want to be? No. Well, who do you want to be? I want to be someone that's thriving. I want to be someone that's healthy. And then ask yourself, well, then, so backing up. So part of my story also came when this was February 2013. I was in the thick of the divorce. The girls had moved out. My dog would not come over to me. Like I had a Cocker Spaniel. I'm like, come here, boy. And he would not come over. It's like, he always comes over, but this time he wouldn't. He just looked at me like, you're a total loser, went around and went back to his bed near the fireplace and sat down. And that's when my first miracle happened. I called it. That's when I realized in that moment that what you focus on, you become.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And so that's when in that moment I said, you know what, I'm going to choose to be healthy. I'm going to choose. So for the first 40 some odd years, I was choosing I didn't want to be a couch potato, but that's what I was. I didn't want to be an apathetic husband and father, but that's what I was. And then in that moment I said, so who do I want to be? Yeah. And then it just resonated with me. I mean, there was more to it than that, but that's the short version. But yeah, I chose to be healthy. So anyone, your first step is your vision. Choose who you want to be. And then the second part of that story is the second miracle is when I understood why I wanted to be that. So I was doing a workout in my garage one day, and I don't know if you've had like this, Chris, but your why, I was doing the bench press, and the motivation just wasn't there. And so I put the bar back on, I stood up and I just asked myself, why am I doing this? Honestly, I had done, I think 3 or 4 external goals. I think 1 or 2 of those were 5Ks. I did a big hiking trip. Again, I kept setting an external goal. Every time you complete one external goal, you got to figure out another one. And that's what most people don't do. They set a goal to lose weight, then they hit it, but then they don't have another goal. And so then it all comes back. So anyway, in that moment, my external shifted to an internal. So my why, I discovered my why, and it became, if I take care of my mind, body, and spirit, my mind, body, and spirit will take care of me. And so those 2 pieces of the puzzle: choose who you want to be, understand your why, and then ask yourself the question, how can I be this? So how can I be healthy? And then that just kind of led to everything else.
Yeah.
So.
No, I get that, man. Just, it's one of those things that I don't feel like nobody actually says, hey, I want to be a couch potato, or I want to be fat, or but
no, they say they don't want to be. They don't want to be that. And they wind up being the thing they don't want to be because that's what they're focused on. Yeah.
I don't even know if it's like that, but it's always so easy to, like you said, like, what's my motivation? Like, well, why am I doing this? I'll just stop and start again next week or whatever.
Yeah.
And then life catches up. And if you keep doing that over and over and over, I'll start next Monday. That's what I always hear. Like, oh, diet starts Monday. No big deal. Then it doesn't, and then it catches up and then they're like, oh shit. Like you said, you're 50 pounds overweight in a matter of, it could be months or a year or whatever. Like, what the hell happened? And then it's just, and if you don't have that why or motivation to get back into, oh, I want to be felt like I did when I was 20 or 25 or whatever your why is, or I just want to be able to, like I said, walk up some stairs without breathing heavy, then you're going to keep down that bad road. So a lot of it leads to, obviously the first step is, what do you want out of it? What's your goal? What is it? And
who do you want to be? Yeah. And being the current version of you, like in my case, being the status quo, which was a couch potato, that was just too, the term in psychology is pleasure and pain, but that was just too painful. I just, even if I think about it now, I tighten up, I get tense about thinking about that old version of me in the couch potato. And I had no idea at the time that, like everybody, I thought it was diet and exercise. I thought it was physical, but it turned out to be so much more. It turned out. So I always say this now to people too, that it's not a weight loss journey at all. And I say this now too, it's not even a get healthy journey anymore. It is a journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Who are you and what are you about? And you just, when you're aligned with that value of who you want to be, then it just kind of takes off from there.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like still, even in a lot of people I interact with, especially, in high school, college, or even before that, teenagers, that they don't really know. And I'm generally speaking, that they don't really know who they are or what they want to be. And they have an idea, I think, based on, and I can personally relate to this, after seeing, media, TV shows, oh, I like those people, but, is that really what I want to be? Is that the type of people or person I want to be? And you can use that as a role model and get to, where you want to be. But when it truly comes down to it, when, you're by yourself and you're, I don't know, if you walk through the park or whatever you're doing, that's kind of what I do. And you're kind of by yourself and you start thinking, hey, is this what I really had planned out? Is this where do I really like me? And then, is this, or do I just like the idea of things, or is that what I really want to do? And, as far as, you found running and being a triathlete and stuff, and, there's obviously there's, like you said, you did P90X there for a little bit, and we got to do that in high school, man. We did that a weightlifting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm kind of going off my point here, but because when you said this,
I was well out of high school by that time. Sorry.
But, so in high school, we were able to take a weightlifting class at 9th grade. And for some, whatever reason, like on Wednesdays or Fridays, or when our weightlifting coach was not there, we did P90X instead of actually the regular stuff. But it works. It's fine. And I guess I'm not sure where I was going with my point. I lost it. But I guess what my point is like, if you find what you want to do, and if you find like you got to put the mind, body, and soul together, kind of what you said, and that makes a full person. Right?
Actually, let me touch on that real quick.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Mind, body, soul. Actually, this is a really important point. The actual order is heart, mind, body.
Heart, mind, body.
Heart, mind, body. What I mean by that is, so what's in your heart? What do you feel in your heart? That's what goes first. Most people are listening to what's in their head, not what's in their heart. And that's where lack of fulfillment comes from, by listening to what's in your head, lack of a joy, happiness. Everybody says, I want to be happy. I want to live a more purposeful life. I want, more happiness, all of that stuff. And the way you do that is by listening to the voice in your heart. So that's why I said, I don't say, mind, body, soul anymore. I say heart, mind, body. And then your mind says, oh, what is my heart feeling right now? My heart is feeling to, be this or to take this trip. Like my heart really, just something really resonated to go to New Mexico. And so then my mind says, okay, how can I work with the heart to support, you going to New Mexico? And then all these ideas just, get out the map and plan your route and all that stuff. And then of course the body always comes last. The body just follows whatever the mind does. But it's really important people understand that order. That's how life works. Heart, mind, body, not the other way around. A lot of people go mind, body, or if they're lucky, they'll go mind, heart, body. They'll try to use their mind to force their heart down a certain path. And that's where you run into resistance. And I like to joke, that's how I lost my hair for like the first, 8 or 9, 10 years. So I understood this is because I was using my mind to force my heart down a certain path of wellness or whatnot. And it just didn't work for me. And so I was like banging my head against the wall, losing my hair, pulling. Well, you're same as me, Chris, but
no.
So if you go mind, body, and I say this too, that will work. Don't get me wrong, but I call that the path of most resistance. You're going to need a lot of discipline, a lot of perseverance, a lot of, hey, if plan A doesn't work, go to plan B, go to plan C, go to plan D. If that works for you, more power to you. I like to take the path of least resistance. Water flows downhill, not uphill. So the path of least resistance, what is it? What do you feel in your heart? Get your mind to tune into that, and then your body will fall into place. So heart, mind, body. Most people go mind, body, or if they're lucky, mind, heart, body. But that's the path of most resistance, I think.
That's a really good point. I never really thought about it that way. And as you were talking, I was thinking that, have you ever seen the movie Replacements? It's got Gene Hackman and Keanu Reeves in it.
No, I've seen some highlights.
Okay.
It's about football or something.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's like a football movie. But anyway, at the end of it, he's actually talking about how, they got to have heart in order to win the game. And, and I think about that a lot because it's so easy in what you were saying. It's so easy to your point that, you can easily say, oh, I really want this. And then if you just say you want it and you don't really do anything about it, if it's not in your
heart. You don't really mean it.
Yeah. So you can tell people all day that you want to lose weight, but if you're not really believing it within your heart, and getting down there and getting it dirty and doing a sacrifice and putting in the discipline and the, sacrifices that,
and that's real quick. I'm sorry to.
No, man, it's fine. Go ahead.
So like someone says, I really want to lose weight, but they don't mean it. It's because what they think they really want to lose weight, but what they really want, and deep in their heart, if they pay attention, is they want to be a better person. And so that's why, like in one of my books, I talk about, discover your why. You got to go through that 5 levels of why exercise, because most people say, I want to lose weight, or I want this. But the reality is they actually want something very different, which is much deeper. And so they got to dig deeper underneath the layers. And so a lot of times, what people really want is to live long, happy, and healthy, not just lose weight, or to just, be a better person, something like that. That's a much more powerful why. I real quick, a short story. Whenever I do talks, I always like to ask this question, how many of you in the room right now with no training, no experience, nothing at all, could go run 100 miles tomorrow? I mean, literally wake up 8 a.m, go run 100 miles. Not a single hand goes up. So then I rephrase the question. Okay, how many of you tomorrow morning, no experience, no training, nothing at all, could go run 100 miles if you knew at the end of the day that all forms of cancer would be cured?
Ooh.
Yeah, every hand literally goes up, or a lot of them will say, I don't know if I could do it, but I would at least try. So what makes the difference between the first one and the second one?
You got a why.
You don't just have a why, you have a much more powerful why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good way to spin it too, man, and put it on there.
Yeah. So you can have a why, but you need a really powerful, everybody has a why. Everybody has a why for what they do. I had a why for being a couch potato. That's a whole nother episode. That's some psychotherapy there, but everybody has a why, but you got to get to the real why and what's going on. And sometimes the why, you've probably heard this, is like a limiting belief or a false belief that we think, we're such and such or such a way, or that, I have to eat this in order to feel better around my spouse or something. And, stories we tell ourselves that aren't true. And so it's just a matter of, getting to the no pun intended, the heart of all that and discovering what your real why is. So
there's a lot of people who like to, I guess, front like that. And like what you're saying, like actually make themselves feel better in front of people rather than what they're really doing. I hope that kind of makes sense. What I'm trying to say is that, for example, in this book I'm reading, like Sacred Cow, that like when people ask, like they come in and they say, well, they ask, or that it's made from crap, I can't see how I want to put this. It's basically when people come in and talk about, like, okay, so what is your lifestyle like? What do you do? What are you eating? What are you drinking? How many alcoholic drinks do you have? And then, and it's one of these studies and they say, 1 to 2. And they just say that because they feel like they're supposed to say that, but really that means they're probably having 3 to 4 and they're really probably just pounding sugary drinks and whatever. And not really. And they're just saying that just because it's supposed to say that, or, that's what people want to hear. It's, well, why do you have to lie about that? It's like what you just said, that, there's something deeper going on. That's what you really want to do. Then why don't you do it? Just don't let the influences of other people distract you of your goals, Yeah,
that happens a lot. We listen to everyone but ourselves. We listen to I call it the voice of society, with friends, family, coworkers. That's all good and well. More power to you. Listen to the voice of your heart.
Yeah. That's where it comes down to, man. And it's, like, I don't know if I told you, I'm one of those CrossFit bros. And just when,
I on one of your episodes, I heard that. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I did CrossFit for a while, so that's good.
But and during the competitions that I do, and, even in my training, that, if you don't want to try to push yourself a little bit extra and, you actually want, like, hey, in order to, what am I trying to say? In order to get that extra little 1 rep, that can mean a lot of points during a competition. But if you don't have the heart, if you just say, like, I want it, but you don't actually just try to do everything you can to get that rep, then it's just like, you don't really have it, man. There's something else out there that you got to learn to get more self-disciplined. I don't know if you got to learn to do hard things and learn to, fight that wall that comes up against you and just push through, or what it is. And I'm not saying, like, you have to go do CrossFit in order to do this. I'm just trying to relate it to almost everything in life, that, there's so many obstacles that can come up. And, like, if you're not really willing to do the dirty work and put things aside and change your lifestyle like you did, I mean, that you keep doing the same thing, you'll get the same results. That's what I'm trying to say.
That's true. And, one thing I've learned over the years is a very important concept or principle. It's something called balance. There's definitely a time when you need to push yourself, challenge yourself. The saying is be comfortable with being uncomfortable, go outside of your comfort zone. But there's also times in life I've discovered where it's okay not to do that. If 9 out of 10 times, if 9 times you've gotten that extra rep or gone that extra mile, but the 10th time you don't, you know what? Life doesn't end there. Life is meant to be fun. And it's not, I was so constantly always trying to force myself out of my comfort zone and grow that I was actually doing more harm than good. And so sometimes you just, like, that's why I say in my podcast, eat ice cream. It's not always about eating healthy food. You got to live life sometimes and just have fun and let your hair down, smell the roses. And so if that means, for me, that I don't do a run that day, then okay, it's not the end of the world anymore. And to get to that again, I want to emphasize there are times you do need to push yourself and challenge yourself. I definitely agree with that. And believe me, I did that for, I think, 13 years into this journey, about the first 8 or 9, maybe almost 10 years, that's what I did. And that catches up with you. Especially if, you're a CrossFitter. I'd love to have another podcast where we just talk about CrossFit, because I love CrossFit. I did it for a couple of years, but I'm real curious to see, because CrossFit is still a fairly new sport. It started around 95 or 2000?
Well, yeah, probably around 2000, but it didn't really, no, maybe a little bit later than that, actually, because it really didn't start catching on until around 2009-ish.
Okay, so that's still a really infant sport. So it'll be interesting to see where the CrossFitters who are doing this high intensity interval training, sometimes 4, 5, 6 days a week, where they're going to be 20, 30 years from now, the impact that has on their joints and their hearts and everything. Yep. And I can tell you, as an endurance athlete for 8, 9 years, always trying to push myself at pace and go faster, that starting in your 40s, that catches up to you real quick. And so I came up with something called the slow easy, which is what I do now. And the goal more is longevity and sustainability versus, intensity or getting first place or anything like that. So
yeah. And that's what I try to tell people, like, when I'm coaching classes and stuff, that, they're like, oh, should I pick up or go for a 1 RM on my deadlift, a PR?
Yeah. 1 rep max or something.
Yeah. For people who don't really know what that means, but yeah. And I'm like, well, we're going to be working out probably the rest of the week. It's only Monday, right? So you don't really need to go for it today, especially if you want to come back tomorrow and you don't want to stress out your back or, worry about doing something. So I agree wholeheartedly with you. And that's kind of one of the issues with CrossFit, that, a lot of people think when they, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but this is my philosophy on it. But when people come in, they think that, and I think CrossFit kind of created this, and this is probably what gives it the bad name too, that when people come into the gym, they think they always have to go 100% physically, mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Exactly. And like nobody, because it's not CrossFit unless you're doing that, like exerting yourself to the point where you go puke in a corner or
exactly.
break your back. But so it's more of like, I try to tell people to listen to your body and how are you feeling that day. Yeah. And so like, hey, if you're not feeling going 100%, okay, cool. Go 50%, go 60%. I don't, if that's what you want to do, that's perfectly fine. Get a good workout in. I mean, that's what it's about, and like you said, I want you to be coming back here next week and the week after and just still continuing on. And that's one thing I had to learn too, was that, me and one of my buddies, we were training intensely for 2 or 3 hours a day following this competitor's programming, and it worked. Don't get me wrong, but around 6 months, we were just beating ourselves to death, and I got to the point where I was like, I do not want to come down there and do that shit anymore. I was like, I'm done.
Burnout. Yeah.
So I took it a step back. I do it 1 hour a day. I run in with the class, and like my mind's better. I feel better. I mean, I train 5 to 6 days a week, and it's just made a complete difference for me. So
no, I hear you. That's why I said so. Balance is key, and whatever that looks like for you. I talk about training by feel and instinct. What is your body telling you? If it's telling you to do, like in my case, to do an extra 2 miles, I'll do an extra 2 miles. But if it's telling me to stop like half hour early, then I'm going to stop half hour early. I mean, there's still some part of me that's competitive. I had to go through that phase. I'm not going to lie. For several years, it was about, time and trophy and podium and, wanting to be that. So I needed that to help me understand about balance and sustainability. But I tell everybody slow, easy. I emphasize 40 and over now too, 40, 50, 60 and aging well and longevity and all that. I know, like I said, it'll be interesting to see these high intensity CrossFitters that are going at it. I love to watch CrossFit competitions, but it's such a new sport. Where are these folks going to be 30 years from now? And I've seen what happens to the bodybuilders, both male and female. They train really intense. They get the big muscles. Those muscles atrophy at some point because when they get in their 60s and 70s, they're not going at that same level of intensity. Yeah. And they look like, the skin stretches, they look like, their muscles have atrophied back to their normal size and they got all this baggy skin because their skin's stretched. I mean, these are fit competitive bodybuilders in their 30s, 20s and 30s, but in their 60s and 70s, like, oh my God. Like if you've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger with his shirt off nowadays,
I have.
He's 75, 76. No, those muscles have atrophied quite a bit, and he's got a lot of baggy skin now. So that's, I know there's a lot of, I don't know if it's peer pressure or what in our society. Men have to have the big chest and the six packs, and women want the toned beach bodies and all that. There's a lot of ego in that, and I love to talk with anybody about that. What makes that so important for you? And I had to go through that phase too, but for me now it's just about being, fit and healthy. And I have a different definition of that now. It's not about the chiseled chest or six pack. It's about slow and easy and enjoying life.
No, and not just touching on that. Do you know who Ronnie Coleman is? He was Mr. Olympia, like 8 times in a row or something. But like he was right up there with Schwarzenegger, and right now he can barely walk. Like his back is like in shambles. And I think he's had it fused. I hope it's had, I'll probably butcher this, but he's had a lot of work done on it. And he has to have a walker. He's almost in a wheelchair. And he was one of those guys that were, probably squatting probably close to 1,000 pounds and stuff. And it's just, but my point is that whereas now with the nutrition and the exercise performance and like all the information that we get in tests, that we're starting to find out, what the effect is of all these movements that we're doing to our body at, high intensity, high impact, look at football, for example. We're now starting to discover how much CTE is actually in football, just from from getting hit. And not only that, UFC, I'm not just going to shit on football, but
I love UFC too, but it's
all coming out now. And it's like, and I'm not saying or disbarring from anybody from doing anything like that. If that's your thing, do it. But there is repercussions for everything, I guess. Right.
You like to read, Chris. You might enjoy this book. This is one of the best books I've ever read. It's called Manthropology. And he compares modern day UFC fighters with the fighters of the Roman gladiator period and all that. And he basically, it's kind of funny. We're off topic a little bit, but he calls modern day UFC fighters a bunch of pansies. I thought it's a great book, Anthropology. I can't remember who wrote it, but I learned a lot from that book because he talks about even the modern day CrossFitters, can't hold squat compared to, our ancestors that were carrying, a 300-pound gazebo, 100 miles across the plain back to the village or something like that. Yeah, he says the modern day athletes, starting from the Olympics, that we're all just a bunch of pansies. It's a great book. I mean, it's all based on anthropological research. It's Anthropology. One of my favorite books ever.
Okay, I got it on my list. I'll get it. I mean, there's probably is some truth to that, and that because back in the day, it's like, what is that? Like, hard times create hard men. So when they're living like that, you actually didn't have the comforts of this. I could sit here and order food while I sit here and talk to you, but you actually had to go out there and probably either kill your food or throw it or make sure you got some food in some way. But yeah, those were how people got hard, and they actually did, put into work. It was actually just not weightlifting. It was just manual work.
Let me ask you this. So when you do your CrossFit classes, Chris, are you indoors?
It's a mixture, but yeah, for the most part, we're indoors. But
is it climate controlled then sometimes?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's more. Most gyms are climate controlled indoors, so that's a huge factor there.
We're in this big, the old school disgusting kind of a warehouse.
Oh, okay.
It's got 3 big bay doors, and we do our running outside. But yeah, in the wintertime we have heat, but other than that, it's.
So try turning off the heat.
Yeah. Yeah, we get enough complaints as it is with just the heat on, about how cold it is. But yeah,
it was funny. I was listening to one of your other podcasts with Karen and Nicole Batar, and you guys were talking about Wim Hof and the cold training he does and everything like that. I've tried some. I mean, so okay, we'll go back to this whole idea of going outside of your comfort zone, and
sure.
I've tried some crazy training stuff. So I've tried the Wim. I mean, I've not trained in it, but I've tried jumping in an ice cold pond and holding my breath. I think I lasted like 2-3 seconds, and then you got to get out real quick. But try, you want to go outside of your comfort zone. Turn the lights off indoors and train in the dark, see what happens. I mean, just change things up to really, put a blindfold on or do just do crazy stuff to really, mix it up in terms of your environment, the light, the temperature, all kinds of stuff. And that's where you really get this idea of, being comfortable with uncomfortable too. I remember this one crazy training session I did. It was pouring rain in Oregon, and I was training for a Spartan race. And I did like a 3-mile run in the absolute blizzard, or not blizzard, but downpour rain and mud. But you learn so much from that versus, a nice, cool fall evening or something. So anyway, that's kind of off the topic a little.
No, it's fun, man. Now, I used to do those. I forgot where I picked it up from, but somebody was saying, when you take a shower for the last, I forgot what it was, 5, 10, 30 seconds, you're supposed to take a cold shower at the end of it. And I probably did that for a week, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm done with this. Yeah, but yeah, there is a lot of science coming out too about cold plunges and doing that after workouts and stuff. And don't really have the facilities or opportunity. I guess I could if I wanted to buy bags of ice every night and do it, but it doesn't. I'm one of those guys like I don't really know how much of benefit I want to get out of that. So, but yeah,
we could pay like thousands of dollars, get one of those nitro chambers.
Yeah. Maybe one day when I start becoming a millionaire, I'll have a whole facility. Yeah. Like I know some people who'll do like that. Well, I don't know them personally, but they'll do the cold plunge for like a couple minutes, and they run to their sauna, sitting there for a little bit, go back in there, and it's like, great. That's great. You can do that. So stuff like that. I wonder how much benefits is the body getting out of that. So I don't know.
Yeah. So anyone listening real quick, just when it comes to like health and fitness and longevity, I really emphasize this idea of slow, easy. So I still do high intensity though. I read some research that that's really good to, keep all your systems, your cardio system, your urinary system, your immune system, all these systems like tuned up. So about once, twice, maybe 3 times a month, I'll do some of that real high intensity stuff, that typical CrossFit routine. Nice. But slow and steady wins the race. So slow and easy for keeping this stuff lasting into your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. So slow and easy with a lot of circular movements in your joints.
What did you always have this thing that you knew you wanted to be like a triathlete or a triathlete? Or did you just decide like, hey, this kind of looks cool, I'll just jump on it?
No, it was part of the journey. When this whole started, I haven't mentioned this part too often, but I had a really big ego.
I know it. I know how it goes.
And a really good friend of mine back in Oregon, we just bumped into each other one day at the Y, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to run a marathon." And she had never run at all before. She just went cold turkey. She went from not running to doing a marathon instead of 5K, 10K, half marathon. She went straight from 0 to marathon. But anyway, she just came to me so one day, "Hey, I'm going to run a marathon." And I just looked at her. I was like, "What?" I was like, "Do you know what that is?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Do you know how far that is?" And she goes, "Yeah." And it's like, "Have you ever done one?" No, but she's that type of person, determined. And so, of course, my ego, I had to one up her. So a couple days later at the Y, I saw a poster for a triathlon. And I'm like, well, running is only one discipline. I'm gonna, one up her, and I'm gonna do 3 disciplines. I didn't know how to swim.
Nice.
It had been the last time I ran my 5K was 20 some odd years ago, and the last time I rode a bike was 20 some odd years ago. So long story short, I put all of those together, and that's where it took several years, but I had a lot of ego in it for the first several years, and pushing myself, like you said, it's always about pushing yourself, pushing your comfort zone, and about year 6, year 7, year 8, I'm like, this just isn't working anymore. I was doing more damage to my body, to my mental health than anything. And so I really started to reevaluate and slowly started to learn about training by heart rate, 180 minus your age, that Dr. Phil Maffetone talks about. And I just kind of combined that with something I called the slow easy. And I went, you know what? I don't need to put my ego in this. I just need to be healthy. And I can be healthy running a 15-minute mile versus an 8-minute mile. And when I run a 15-minute mile, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling high. I want to do it again the next day. When I run an 8-minute mile, I can't walk for 3 days. Mm-hmm. But boy, if my ego felt good.
Yeah, sure.
I had to learn to take the ego out of it.
Yeah, so. You got to have. I try to tell people to leave their ego at the door when they come into like the CrossFit, just because
it's hard with CrossFit.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you see certain people doing certain lifts and lifting certain weight. You're like, "Ooh, they're doing the muscle ups. I want to be able to do that, but I've never done one." And that's another reason. Part of it gets a bad name is that they get up there and they try to do something they haven't trained or been, wanting or haven't. Their shoulders haven't had any impact or whatsoever, and they end up getting hurt. But yeah, it's hard to do it though. It's really hard, even for me now. I've been doing it 10 years, and it's some days
you're getting old, Chris. But yeah, you're in your mid-30s, so yeah, wait till you're in your 40s.
Gotta calm down, bro. Yeah. but yeah, that's just one thing that's just like I try to tell people, hey man, if you want to come back tomorrow. If you want, like, I love what you're saying, slow, easy. Is that what you said?
Yeah, slow, easy.
Yeah. If you want to keep doing it, if you want to keep grinding, keep staying healthy. I mean, and a lot of people are watching, the CrossFit athletes and, I want to be, Rich Froning. I mean, just Merritt. I was like, well, dude, I mean, are you doing this just to be healthy or work out, or do you want to become an elite CrossFit athlete? I mean,
yeah. And if you do want to be at that elite level, then yeah, certainly you've got to train like that. And I realize, that just, at 46 years old now, I just didn't need that anymore. I kind of have a little bit of that going on because at 50, I'll be eligible for the Senior Olympics. So I was like, it'd be kind of cool to win a gold medal in the Senior Olympics. So some of that is starting to come out again. But, it's funny that book I told you about, Manthropology, I studied a lot of cultural anthropology and our ancestors. And, these are the fittest, healthiest, and I'll add happiest people on the planet. And I'm like, there's not a single ancestor, anywhere that knows what a push-up is or that knows what a burpee is.
Sure.
These are the fittest, healthiest people on the planet. So what did they do? I just started looking at that and studying that. How did they move? They didn't just walk straight. They were carrying something heavy, so I'll carry a big rock, kind of like you do in CrossFit. You do the farmer's carry with the dumbbells, or the fireman's carry. That's fairly close. But stuff like that, not just what do they eat, it's easy. They eat the natural foods, whatever they hunt and gather in nature, but when do they eat? How do they eat? All of that stuff. And that book, Manthropology, it goes into a lot of I should read that book again. It's been years since I read that book.
I want to check it out, man. So they talk about their nutrition too? Is that what you said?
Yeah. They talk a lot about that too. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And just that, I'm sure they were trying to eat 3 times a day, but they were just probably being lucky to eat, or
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really affects your metabolism. That's a huge keeping weight off strategy. I talk about it in my book, Keeping Weight Off Permanently, but is how so CrossFit, you have to use carbohydrates for fuel. You're in that anaerobic condition where you need immediate energy all the
It
time.
depends on the person too. So I used to think like that, but I've kind of went more low carb for me, and it works out better for me.
Okay.
But no, I do agree with that though. But I think it also depends on, your type of, I guess your type of, what am I looking for? Your microbiomes and stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
I used to eat pretty hard or heavy carb, but now it's more higher protein consumption for me, and it works really well. My body enjoys it more.
So one of the strategies I always tell people keep weight off permanently is you've got to learn to use your aerobic system and use fat for fuel.
Yeah.
So high fat animal diet, olives, avocados, stuff like that. And then the slow, easy movement, 180 minus your age, so that metabolism gits burning again, and then is using fat for fuel. That's the most effective keeping weight off strategy that there is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would agree with that, but I don't think a lot of people know, exactly that type of strategy, eating high fats versus high carb, like we just said, or high protein. But
That's why I come on your show to tell people.
yeah, and that's great. But because a lot of people don't really. It took me a while to actually start paying attention to my nutrition, and I did a lot of different diets as far as carnivore. I've done a little bit of paleo. There's this carb cycling one, like I kind of
I did that.
Yeah, and that wasn't bad, but I think it was just kind of what we were saying is like when we're talking about listening to your body and how you're feeling that day. But when I was eating and seeing myself in the mirror and how my clothes are fitting, and like, oh, do I have brain fog today? Am I mentally here? It's like, what is my body? Am I reacting to these foods? Am I liking it? Whatever. But I found out what seems to work better for me is, and I feel great during my lifts or my performance, that little higher protein, some carbs, and little fats there, here and there. So more of the macro.
Yeah, you make a good point too. I did a lot of trial and error too when it came to diet, nutrition, and healthy eating. It took me years to figure it out. So yeah, you've kind of gone through that same thing. Even you tell somebody, X, Y, and Z in terms of diet, they still got to tweak it based on their body and to make it work for them. A lot of it's culture too. The tribal ancestors, they were always outdoors, always moving, always hunting and gathering, where we're more indoors, more sedentary. We're sitting down right now. In a tribal culture, we would be hunting right now, walking side by side. And so we would be burning calories versus just, sitting here. And again, we're stepping over. So we're using all our joints and all these different motions, stepping over things, ducking under things, walking quietly like this, trying to sneak up on something. So we don't do any of that in the modern world. So, but all of that, goes towards training your metabolism too, to burn fat for fuel and be more efficient. So,
yeah, I think that's one of the problems with, I don't know if it's diet culture, if it's just fitness, what in general, but I think there is a misconception out there. There were a lot of people who don't do their homework and they think there's one diet that fits all. And they start to do this, whatever diet, let's say it's keto or carnivore or whatever you want to do, then, oh, that didn't work for me. And 2 weeks in, they quit, and I'll just go back to what I was doing. But everyone wants, to take the red or the blue pill and get the shortcuts done or get the results in a week or two, but it doesn't work that way. And a lot of people don't realize that, I feel like.
But we're programmed to think that it does work that way now. Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, you've got the very first two pieces of this journey is you got to know who you want to be. You got to know what your why is. And then how can I be, that thing I choose to be? And if you don't have that, if you skip that, like I said, if you go heart, mind, body, you're going to be doing okay. But if you skip the heart part and go to mind, body, try to figure it out, you're going to, like I did, 3 weeks on the bicycle and I quit. That's what most people do.
Yeah.
So they've got to go back. This is not a get healthy journey. This is not a lose weight journey. This is a journey of self-discovery. Who are you?
Wow.
Yeah.
What is your plan to go into the Senior Olympics for the futures?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's on my, I changed the name. Sometimes it's called my dream list or my adventure list, but yeah, I want to win a gold medal, and I wanted to, and I still want to do this. I want to challenge myself, even at my age, to do something I've never done before. So I've never done pole vaulting. Ooh. So I would love to learn to pole vault, which would be so far out of my comfort zone. And, I'd be like 3 left feet trying to do that at first, but you only live once. So, I haven't really, when I learned to swim, I didn't think I'd be able to find a swim coach at 42, 43 or 42 years old. But I did. I found a high school swim coach that taught me, and bless her heart. And so I'm sure at some point, if I look hard enough, I'll find a coach that could teach me pole vaulting. But in the meantime, you've got the sprints, the track and field, and there's some other fun events, shuffleboard, I think ping pong. So yeah, I'll just do something just for fun.
That's fine. I mean, man, like you said, enjoy life, do new things, try new things, nobody wants to look like a fool. Nobody wants to do, try something and look like an idiot when they do it. But that's part of the growing process. That's part of the learning process. And it makes it even more fun that you learn what you did wrong and you learn if you liked it or not. And you keep grinding at it. And one day you might get really good at it. But
I'll take some video and send it to you.
Do it, man. I mean, we never had that, and because that's stuff like that was always interesting to me, even when I was in high school and stuff. I did track in high school, but we only had the high jump and just kind of the regular stuff, or I don't even know if that is regular stuff, but we didn't have pole vaulting. But I was like, oh, that'd be so much fun. And when I watch videos of people doing it in the Olympics, oh man,
they get do it. 16, 17, 18. That's a story and a half or almost 2 stories high. Yeah. And I'm afraid of heights a little bit still. So yeah. So we'll see. But in the meantime, they've got some of the other track and field events and whatnot. So, but that's part of life. You got to have goals. So here's another piece of this segment. We talk about goals. You can't just have a goal. You got to have a goal that excites you, that you're excited about. If it doesn't excite you, why is that a goal? So people always say, I might have a goal to lose 30 pounds. Well, how excited are you about that? Most people on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being really excited and 1 not excited at all, they're like a -3. Like, why is that your goal? Let's have that be the byproduct. Let's get, so I talk about, why don't we let's walk 300 miles in 4 months and raise $2,000 for our favorite charity.
Yeah.
And let's not even think about losing weight, but let's train for that right there. And then, 3 months later, you've lost 25, 30 pounds and you didn't even think about it. You weren't even trying. So it's got to be the byproduct. So that's just one idea. So, when you have goals, even for you, Chris, I don't know what your goals are, but, they got to excite you. If you don't get excited about them, then
then why are you doing it? Yeah.
Why are you doing that goal? Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a good point. It's just a byproduct. It's I've watched people or read about people or listened to them on podcasts. They watch movies as they work out. They don't even realize that they're working out. That's like, hey, I want to watch this movie, but they do it. They start sweating, and it's like, oh, I knocked out 2 things right there, and it's just like, oh, that's a good way of doing it. And and then adding that extra little bit, like, hey, I'm raising money as I do something and walk or whatever and lose weight along the way, because there's so many people who just say that, oh yeah, I just want to lose weight, but there's no other reason. And then, like I said earlier, then they just stop dead in their tracks, like, oh, this ain't.
Yeah. It's a journey of self-discovery. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like, I guess, what is it? 40% of America's obese right now?
Oh, more than that, I think.
I would say
60. Maybe I'm not sure about it.
I'm not either. But somebody told me that, and I was like, well, that makes sense. And then I think there was something about 2030, it would be like 50 or 60%, as you said.
Children too, like 13 and under, childhood obesity.
Dude, it's terrible.
Yeah, those are public health emergencies, pandemics. Yeah,
and I'm wondering, speaking of the future and stuff like that, is America, once we hit this pandemic, are we going to finally do a trend change or a shift change, whatever you want to say, and like people hopefully start, like you did, start learning more about their health and what is good for them, what is good for the heart, mind, and body, and start to change this around and we take them numbers back down, or if it's just going to keep continuing into a random anarchy phase where we're just all just couch potatoes forever the rest of our lives. And
it's crazy. There is more information about exercise, nutrition, wellness, mindfulness, pick your buzzword, than at any point in history. And you have access to that information free on YouTube and the internet. And yet we're actually this is a whole nother podcast too. We're actually, like you said, getting worse. Our obesity rates are increasing. They're not decreasing. Mm-hmm. I have no problem charging, $200 for, an hour one time a month or something for one session, whereas a doctor will charge $800. And so I say, you want to pay me $200 for life, or you want to pay them $800 one time deposit? And then, do you want to take a pill, or do you want to use a wheelchair, or all that stuff? So if people want to change their health, if we just focus on health for a second, people will change their health when they have that desire, when they are no longer satisfied with the status quo. They have to be at that point. They have to create that. If they're still somewhat okay, even a teeny tiny little bit with the status quo, then it's going to be really hard for them to make that change. So some people, like, have to have that heart attack, unfortunately, or something like that before they finally realize, wake up and make the change. Hopefully it doesn't come to that for a lot of people, but, that's what it was for me. I was just so sick and tired of the status quo of being, deadbeat dad, overweight, lethargic, all this stuff. That's what got me off the couch. So if you're on the couch, to get off the couch, you got to say, I'm not satisfied where I'm at right now with my health. I want to make a change. Well, what is that change you want to make that to healthy then? And then you've got to make that decision right then and there. And then, everything else falls into place. And that's, most people don't decide that. They, I don't know. You're a different generation, Chris, but do you know the movie Karate Kid?
The old one or the newer ones?
No, the old one. Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Miyagi. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the very first one, he talks about, this is a great metaphor. If you walk on the left side of the road, you're safe, Daniel-san. If you walk on the right side of the road, you're safe, Daniel-san. But if you walk in the middle, Daniel-san, he does that in the movie. You get squashed just like a grape, because you haven't chosen to walk left or right. You're kind of gray area, wishy-washy. And most people are doing that when it comes to health. I'll use the words diet and health, exercise, because I know people understand those words, but most people are in that gray area. And so anytime any decision in your life, you either got to be, like Yoda says, do or do not, be or be not. You got to play full in or not at all. And most people are like half-hearted. And that's because they don't have the first two pieces of the puzzle understood, the who you want to be and the why you want to be that.
Yeah, man, that's a great point, that if you stay in the middle of the road, that you're not really going to do everything or do anything at all. You're just going to kind of fall in that gray area forever. But yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100% that there is so much information out there. And so, I mean, it might be a little bit overwhelming at first, but I think if you stay on to, if you pick whatever way you want to go on the right side or left side, eventually you'll find your way and you'll find that why, and you find out what works for you. But yeah, man. And then going on what you said a little bit earlier, though, just that when I feel like a lot of people, like you said, would they rather pay you $200 or $800 to a doctor, that, people, when they start, talking about money and investing in it or paying it towards something, they get a little, weird about it. Like, what am I getting out of it and stuff? Well, they don't really understand that, hey, when you pay, like a coach or somebody to help you along the way, that, you need to invest in your own health, and that's you investing in your longevity. That's you investing in a different mindset, and that you need this different push, and you need to access to this information, that this is going to help you make that change that obviously, hey, dum-dum, whatever you were doing before, you weren't getting out of, and that's why you ended up in this position. So you shouldn't look at it like, oh man, I'm wasting money or anything. I'm actually investing into my future here,
Yeah, it's you said it right, longevity. This is not a short-term investment. If you're 40 years old now, you're investing when you're 70 and 80 years old. Whatever you decide today at 30 years old, 20, 30, 40 years old in terms of health will come back to be with you when you're 60, 70, and 80. So, like me, started investing in my health 40. You never know what'll happen in life, but I fully expect to be fully mobile and everything well into my 70s and 80s.
That's what I want right there, man. Just so independent, be able to go walk and go, even if I'm not CrossFitting or whatever, if I'm still go out and do it for a run or a nice brisk walk or whatever, just have that independence for yourself and be able to, if I need to pick up something off the ground, it's not going to break my back doing it, I guess, not complete CrossFit terms here, but just be functionally fit, just like what you're saying. Just be able to, even if I was told at 80 years old I was going to go walk a mile, like, okay, no problem. That's what I'm going to do it. Maybe put a 10-pound weight in my backpack while I do it.
Yeah.
That's and it's so badass to me when I see those types of stories and hear about people doing that and stuff. It's like, man, I hope I'm that way when I'm 80 and I get that, bit of good luck out on my side too at the same time. So.
Well, I've worked with a lot of seniors. I know what happens when you don't do that, in your 20s and 30s, pills, doctor visits, wheelchairs, walkers, lack of mobility, lack of independence. That's the norm, roughly 78, 80, 82 and on, if you're lucky enough to get that long. But the rare exceptions, like you said, are those that, practice this lifestyle early enough and long enough that that's not an issue. Now, again, there's no guarantees in life. I met a very, I met a lot of seniors in my life, but I met one who ate bacon and eggs and smoked every day and lived to be 95. No problem, on his own to be independent. Now, what doctor is going to recommend that? I had two others that were very active, well into their 70s, and both had massive, massive strokes. Both were left about half to 2/3 paralyzed throughout their body and died about 2 years later. Now, how did that happen? So you never know, but I'd still rather err on the side of being fit and healthy than not fit and healthy. So
yeah, I mean, genes, it's hard to outbeat whatever genes you got. And,
yeah,
obviously nobody can really pick out their parents, and what you get from them or whatever. But there are ways to, like we've been talking about this whole time, that to kind of prevent that, do the best you can. And like I said, with a little bit of luck on your side and a little bit of doing X, Y, and Z the right way, and like living a good balance, I think you can reach pretty much the majority of your goals that you have in mind. But do you think, real quick, do you think, and I just wanted to say this, that, and I don't want to shit on doctors or anything, because there are good doctors and stuff like that, but, or even in the medical field or whatever, but what is the saying that, the money is in the visits, not in the cure. So that's what they want you to keep coming back. So it's like an elaborate plan is that?
Yeah, I don't know much about that. There's a thing though that I like. Western, I'll use the term Western doctors, and those that are trained in the traditional sense, because some modern doctors are being trained differently, but Western doctors look at the disease that the person has, whereas wellness coaches and wellness doctors look at the person that has the disease. Big difference. So a doctor focuses on the disease and looks for a cure. Wellness person focuses on the lifestyle. Food is medicine. Food is medicine or food is poison. Just choose wisely. Movement is medicine.
Sure. Yeah.
Things like that. So I one of my other books I'm writing, I talk about the natural medicine: sunshine, movement, food, breathing, things of that nature.
And touching on that, movement is medicine, I think there's some more articles coming out now that, like I rolled my ankle a while back. Well, it's probably been a couple of years ago now, but, instead of actually doing a whole, rice methods, that they were actually saying that, actually move on it a little bit and keep the blood flowing. Just don't sit around for 2 weeks with it up in the air. That moving it was probably a little bit better stuff for the body. And that's what they're kind of coming towards now, that, just don't be stagnant, move around, get it going.
Yeah, actually rice is, I think they're throwing that out the window. They're not using the ice part anymore. It's just the compress, and mostly compress now, and walk around on it a little bit. Yeah, that's the hard part with science. What they say today is they're not saying, next week or something. So it's hard to gauge some of that. Like, one day they'll say don't eat bananas, the next day they say eat all the bananas you want.
Yeah. I mean, how do you stay sharp, with you? I mean, I know you just said you got into all this about 13 years ago, but I mean, is it what we've been talking about? You just started reading, you started gathering all the information you could, and just
all the above. Yeah. So there's another principle I teach. It's called Kaizen. Tony Robbins calls it Kanai, I think, constant and never-ending improvement. So Kaizen, you're always learning, you're always growing. Yeah. So I to this day, I'm still reading books. I try 3 to 5 books a month. Always looking, talking with experts like you. I've been doing my own podcast.
Expert.
I've been doing my own podcast. Yesterday I interviewed a guy who was an expert in gut health. I learned so much that wow, I hadn't really done a lot of my own research on gut health. But always reading, and that's part of life, is this Japanese samurai principle of Kaizen, that you're always learning, always growing, always, striving to, they use the word improve. So always improving, always growing, always learning. And so I'm always, for a while, I was at a different coaching seminar, every 2-3 weeks or something like that. Every cross country meet I went to, that coach had 20 years. I was in his face. Okay, how do you do X, Y, and Z? Picking my brain. CrossFitting, I learned so much from my CrossFit coach. I had 2 really good CrossFit coaches. Actually 3, because I did a home CrossFit program. I did that SEAL Fit with Mark Devine, 8 weeks to SEAL Fit program that he has.
Yeah, I would love to pick your brain on that.
Yeah. So you just, yeah, I watch YouTube videos all the time now. I mean, yeah, I listen to lectures and seminars, read stuff. Nowadays, I'm a little bit lazier. I mostly just ask the experts. So I get them on my podcast and then I ask them all the questions that I want to know. So
There you go. That's a good way to do it. Yeah. I mean, I used to think that, I was kind of had that same mindset when I was in college and coming out of college. I was like, oh yeah, I'm learning, I'm still growing. But when I go back and look at it, it's like, man, I wasn't doing anything. I just thought I was. And it wasn't until I don't know when it was, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, that I was just like, man, there's other ways to do things out here other than what I'm doing and what I'm seeing from everybody in my gym. And that's kind of when I was like, I got more into like, I need to start reading more. And I started, listening to, I think it was about 2016, 2017 is when I started listening to podcasts and listening to experts like you were saying to come on, and we're not on my show, but talking to, talking to the big dogs and stuff. And I was like, oh man, I never thought about it that way. And it makes much more sense. And it opened up my eyes and my mind just to be like, okay, there's, like we said, there's trials and errors. There's other ways of doing things. Let me play with this. Let me experiment with it. Doesn't mean I have to, take it, run with it. Let me just play with it. See what happens. If it doesn't work, then just throw it out the window. No big deal.
That's one of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee. He used to say, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless. So that's what I tell everybody I coach in my seminars. I say, if this works for you, add it to your wellness toolbox. If it doesn't, no hard feelings, toss it out the window. Some of the stuff that, I learned just doesn't work for me. So I just toss it out. Some of it does. So I use it. The stuff I learned on gut health, that works for me. So I'm going to use it. So
I used to almost think that way too, is that, just because, let's say if it was The Rock or Arnold Schwarzenegger or someone, it's like, they did it this way, I got to do it this way. That means it's going to work for me 100%. And it's like, it doesn't work like that at all.
Not a one size fits all. I've learned that too. Yeah. It's not a one size strategy fits all for everybody. Yeah.
I remember I think Arnold Schwarzenegger has a book like the Bible of Bodybuilding or Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding, something along that. I remember, buying it when I was in college or whatever. It's like, oh, I'm going to look just like him and all that. And it was like, okay, well, he was also doing other things, but I didn't stick with that. But yeah, it was one of those things. I thought this was the formula and becoming a complete monster walking around. But yeah, I was like, oh, okay, this is not it. So,
I love to talk with those folks and just, pick their brain. Hey, what's the real reason you're getting these big muscles? Is it out of fear and insecurity? A lot of times that's the honest to God's truth. They say the truth shall set you free. In some cases, they're very genuine and, sincere that it is, love from the heart. I always, when people are trying to achieve a goal, I ask, well, where is your goal coming from? Is it coming from your head, a place of fear, your ego, or is it, which many of my goals in the beginning were. And so I really had to discipline and drive myself to cross that finish line a few times. Or is your goal coming from your heart, a place of love? So
yeah, that's a great point, because I forgot who I was talking with on here, but it was when I used to work in recreation and wellness here on higher education, and one of the assistant directors of fitness, we were talking about Instagram and all these girl models who get on there and shake their ass and get 1 million views and stuff.
Yeah.
but she made a good point that is almost what you just said, that most of those people who are doing it, and I'm not knocking, if you're doing it, great, I don't care, that's your thing. But most of those people who are doing it have some type of deeper issue as far as like wanting to be wanted, or I forgot, was this maybe a little bit narcissistic? I can't remember exactly, but it was something along those lines that, oh, I need this type of thing in order to feel good about myself.
Yeah. So insecurity. Yeah. A lot of the time that's rooted in fear and insecurity, which is fine because we're all human. It's just a matter of, you want to break through that if you want a better life.
Yeah. And, I mean, like I said, I don't want to knock that, but, we weren't made, it's not human nature to get on there and get on social media and try to just get likes just from shaking your ass. So, I mean, there is good stuff from all that stuff. But yeah, I think it's almost damaging to people at the same time. Kind of, we're saying that, you keep doing this and you're getting all these dopamine likes and loving life and it's working out, but eventually you're going to live the rest of your life out this way when you're going to be 60, 70 years old, wanting to get on Instagram or whatever the new social media at the time will be, and still trying to make money.
All that,
yeah, man. And it's, and like I said, I'm not knocking it, and I don't care, if people are doing it, great. But I mean, I don't know. It just makes me wonder, like, what is the future of it all? And like, will we see more, we were talking about, the obesity rates going up. Are we going to see more, there's that one book, Colin of the American Mind, talking about how teenage girls are having more mental health issues just because of social media and being cyberbullied and stuff like that. And it's just the direction we want our civilization to go in.
Yeah, one thing I'm I guess meditating on, if that's the right word, where I'm at in my journey. We talk about this idea. It's talked about in the Declaration of Independence. This idea of the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
And I'm meditating on this idea about this, because there's so much emphasis about, this extraordinary life, the pursuit of an extraordinary life. And it seems like everybody, everything, everywhere is all about that. I mean, podcasts, bless your heart for doing yours, Chris, and me for mine, but we're a dime a dozen now.
I know.
There's over 4 million podcasts, I think, and
You're right.
and everybody and their dog has written at least one book, it seems like, on some sort of health and wellness. I mean, you go to the bookstore alone, there's like an entire bookstore just on health and wellness, much less political science or any other topic. So it's like we're driven by this pursuit of an extraordinary life. And I'm meditating on this whole notion of, is that really what it's about? Is that really what it's about? Because, even like look at Tony Robbins, who's living life at the absolute highest level based on, society's definition of, fame, money, success, all that,
Sure.
and living in a blissful state, as he says, he'll tell you he's still learning, he's still growing, he's still improving, all of that stuff. But I'm really, I don't know. I'm like maybe taking a Buddhist approach or something. I don't know, but they're just I'm hung up on this. I don't think that's the whole point of life, is this pursuit of an extraordinary life. I think it's something different. So that's just where I'm at with my journey. I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but I'm blown away in today's world. Just you go on Facebook, there's so many groups, and oh my gosh, I get DM solicitations all the time now and friend requests. 10, 15 a week now. It's getting a little crazy, but everybody is a coach wanting to help, even me to a certain degree, trying to help you improve your life and all that. And I don't know, I'm just this whole idea of an extraordinary life that society is really pushing on everyone, always, go outside of your comfort zone, challenge yourself, be comfortable with uncomfortable. I feel like in my journey, I'm starting to evolve past that. And I'm like, I think there's more to life than even that. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. So I don't know, it's interesting, fascinating for me. That maybe there's more to life than this idea of an extraordinary life. And everybody has a different definition of that, so.
That's exactly what I was getting ready to say, that everyone has their own perfect life, so to speak. And
yeah.
And not only, and I agree, yeah, we're a dime a dozen with podcasts. And I guess I got into it at the wrong time, but I didn't really do it just to become a person or for people to look up to me or anything like that. It was more of just a kind of a challenge for me, because I always felt like I had trouble communicating with people. Like it just didn't flow right, or it just wasn't, I always kind of held my opinions in and not really got them out, or, and I just wanted, it was more of a challenge. And when, I had my friends on here in the beginning, and I still get them on here. And it was just kind of like, hey, can I do this? And this is like the one thing in my life that I actually felt like I was taking a chance on and putting myself out there and,
Cool.
letting the internet decide if it's going to be good or bad, in which, you can never beat the internet on anything, whatever topics or whatever it is. But it was more for me. And then it just kind of turned into this now that I get to sit down and just have chats with people like yourself. And it's fun for me. And that's what I think I enjoy out of it. And I get to learn like your side of the story, kind of what I was saying about it earlier, what other people, how they've been living, what have they been doing, what challenges did you overcome? And it's cool. So
yeah, that's why I said I don't read as many books anymore. I just talk to the experts now who read them and ask to pick their brains.
Coach Brad, let's take us home on that right there. How about that? And if people want to find you, connect with you and all that good stuff, where do they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, anybody can find me, connect with me at my website, trainingwithcoachbrad.com. I've got a free guide you can download there about keeping weight off permanently. You can check out my podcast there too. So trainingwithcoachbrad.com.
Cool, man. Appreciate you being here. This was a good conversation. I enjoyed talking with you.
Hey, me too. That's been awesome. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Be good to yourselves, people. We're going.